Hey, Dan. So we're just going to have a conversation today, I think, about Squid Game.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it came out like almost 2 months ago to the date. It's one of the most popular series of all time. What are your overall thoughts on the culture as well as the Squid Game itself?
Well, the show is wonderful. It's extremely engaging. It's very colorful. It's very fun. Before we started recording this, you described it as a blockbuster, and that's exactly what this is. And that when you said that made me think, I don't think that this is possible to have a blockbuster movie anymore, because we both saw Dune and we both felt kind of lukewarm about it. And it's going to do good business, but not as good as Squid Game. So I think blockbusters now are just on television, right? Because like this is a full on blockbuster.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, this is the last time I've talked to this many people about the same thing is when Game of Thrones was coming out. And I was stand up a bit about Game of Thrones, but the last fourth of it sucked. But the first 3/4, dynamite, really good. And ironically, it's the same thing with this season of Squid Game.
Yeah.
I think the first 3/4 are really good. Like literally the first 3/4 are really good. And I think there's 9 episodes, but basically there's 8. There's like one episode that's like 20 minutes, so I just like put that in with another episode. But it is 8 episodes, and I think the first 6 are very strong. And then I think it kind of falls off the train a bit, the squid train, as it were. But back to this cultural thing that is just like, you know, I'm living in LA right now, and like I went to Halloween in like West Hollywood one of the nights, and went bar hopping, and there were so many Squid Game costumes. Really just crazy how, again, there's hearing about something and seeing it on their internet, but seeing it in actuality is crazy. And what I saw that night, Halloween night, I didn't see Michael Myers. I saw a bunch of fucking people in Squid Game costumes, and it just blew my mind, because I'm like just the average person just watches Squid Game, and it's like the average person did not watch Parasite. Mm-hmm. And the closest thing to this in my mind, it's like Parasite mixed with like Saw. I'd say like I think that's a fair, like, and like, you know, there's a kids game aspect to it, but I think Saw is simplistically can be called a kid's game.
Yeah.
It is such just like a lovely, stupid, convoluted franchise, which is where I think Squid Game is headed.
Yeah.
Because I think the worst aspects of Squid Game are going to be more apparent in the coming seasons. And I guess this is because like I think the general person liked Squid Game for different reasons we might have.
I think what's interesting is because when we saw Parasite and when we reviewed Parasite, we talked about its cultural significance here in the United States, and it felt like that was South Korea blowing up onto the map, you know? Like that was the big step. And then this show proved that there was still more to go, right? Like Parasite now, by comparison, is like a small stepping stone on the path of getting us here to Squid Game. And so I think that that's really interesting. I think Parasite walks so that Squid Game can run on top of a giant platform with glass that breaks.
Yeah.
And again, we're comparing or talking about Parasite and Squid Game, not just because they're both Korean, but because I think that they illuminate something that's important. And I think that the cultural appetite for Squid Game and Parasite shows us there is an incredible demand for anti-capitalist television and film. And we're not going to go into the politics of that necessarily, but like, I just think that that's very interesting, especially in this case, because you described it as like a dystopian future. We used to want dystopian future movies where it's like, this is the far future. This is what could happen if we get there. Now we've taken the dystopian future and brought it to the dystopian present.
Right.
And that's sort of what everyone is craving. Mm-hmm. Mad Max is happening right now under our noses because of capitalism. So I just think that that's interesting. Like the appetite is there, and it's for anti-capitalist material on Netflix. Yeah, I know. I know. I mean, all of it's ironic because
Okay, it is one of the biggest things ever, and it's like it made so much money. Like that's the thing about Squid Game. It's like I can't even imagine how much money. It is the most popular show on Netflix. Like I know we keep saying that, but that is the craziest thing ever. Like that this show is the biggest thing on Netflix. And Netflix and streaming platforms in general are just like another, and again, we won't get into this, but they are another just like gear in capitalism, in the capitalistic machine. Like it is just that streaming was like originally something that was like bringing like a bunch of content to people like who can't really afford it.
Right. Democratize the content and bring it to the people for sure.
Exactly. Can't really like, you can't afford to rent a movie every week, stuff like that. It's like, what if there was streaming and it just was like automatic and it was there and you just paid a monthly fee, and it's like, that's cool. But then it has become like, this is the new cable box because there's 50 billion streaming platforms.
Right. Now it's become like, how can we keep you on the service? And that's one more thing that I just wanted to talk about real quick is like Netflix comes out with about 5 or 6 things every single year. We've talked about this off mic, but I just want to say it on mic. Netflix comes out with about 5 or 6 things a year that keep me subscribed. And this year it was Squid Game, it was Midnight Mass, it was a couple of other things that were earlier in the year. For a lot of people, it's like The Crown. Most of the time, I want nothing to do with it. I spend more time on other streaming services than I do on Netflix. But
I mean, HBO Max is great.
HBO Max is great. Sponsor us. But still, Netflix comes out with 1 or 2 or 3 culture defining shows every single year.
Yeah.
And then inevitably at the end of the year, they also get a couple of like, they get, Oscar, The Irishman, they get Roma, something like that. So I don't know. I just wanted to mention that. It's like they always have something that keeps you hooked. And I'm glad that I watched Squid Game. And I'm glad that Squid Game exists because I think it talks about interesting things. But if you have anything more on the culture, we can talk about that, or we could go back and start talking about the show. I
mean, I guess the last thing I have to say is that I think this is the most connected everyone has been on something since Tiger King. That's like already a surprising to say, but it's almost 2 years ago. Time goes, huh? And we go with it. But yeah. Anyways, I think that's good enough to stop there, and then we can kind of talk more about just the show in general if we want to dive into it. I don't believe we should just go through each episode. We can kind of talk about big moments. And I guess I'll just start with one of my big moments from the beginning. What hooked me was the red light, green light episode. It is. Yeah. I think it never tops it. Honestly, I think it peaked. Like I genuinely think episode 1 it peaks in the spectacle of it. I think that is the biggest game and that is the most exciting game and something I rewatched it like 5 times because it's so good. Fly Me to the Moon is playing in the background. It builds perfectly. Like you got those bros in the beginning who were like, just being like, oh, this is just a silly game and we'll get this. And again, it's like they get shot immediately. Like this series does a really good job, and we'll talk about it in episode 6 too, of going with the promise that has been made. The setup of it is that all these people don't know what they're in for, and the punch is like 200 people die in that opening scene, and it's so good. Or that closing scene of episode 1. And it's really good, and it leaves a lot of mystery, and I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that red light, green light episode? Or
it's incredible. I mean, from the way the whole series is just wonderfully shot and wonderfully directed. This particularly, because when the game starts, you got the guy out in front who shakes a little bit, moves a little bit after the doll turns its head, and you just hear the sound of the shot. You don't see the impact, and you're like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
And if you're going into the show kind of cold like I was, it was particularly surprising because I didn't know to what extent. I expected blood, but I didn't know really what we were going to be in for. And like that guy goes down, that whole thing, and then everyone runs, and it's just like, oh my God. I think this is when the violence is the most visceral and the most disturbing, because I think as the show goes along, I become more and more desensitized to the violence, and it becomes more fun. It becomes more a part of the game. And like, no one really wants to admit that because no one wants to see people die. But like That's why we watch Saw. That's why we watch horror movies. You know, there's fun to it, you know?
I mean, Tarantino says that's why you love the end of Joker so much.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why you, Tyler, love the end of Joker and that movie as a whole.
Not true. Not true, Quentin. Not true. You want him to kill Robert De Niro.
Right. No, but like that. Well, I think the reason for that is because the show is very engrossing. You really put yourself in the shoes of these characters as they're going through the games, because you want to test yourself as well. Like, could you win that money? Could you win this game? Could you win the next game, the next game, the next game? And so as the games go along, you're sort of playing along with it. Because you're playing along with it, the violence becomes a little bit more, I don't know, a bit more a part of the game, a bit more fun to watch as a viewer. So there's that going on. But in that first red light, green light episode, that's where the violence is the most shocking. That's where it's the most visceral. And I kind of wish that the show stayed as visceral and as intense as that.
It's so simple. It's like, if you move, you die, like literally. And they do that so well in that opening scene, because it's like, first guy gets shot for moving a little bit, and then his friend like runs, he gets shot, splashes on her face, and she moves a little and then just gets hit in the fucking face.
Right.
And that was just like such a simple, like, again, it was like a domino effect. And that was like what was beautiful about it. As the games go on, they get less visceral like that, because it starts just being either like, you got to outsmart them or you got to be lucky. I think that's why like episode 7 starts getting like, okay, what's going on here? Because his whole thing, the leader's whole thing is about equality and making sure like everyone gets their equal spot, you know, and that's why we won't talk about the subplot besides like this moment, I think. But that one guy who's getting like basically like hints at what the next games are going to be. He just kills him because he's like, they're cheating. They're all cheating together. And this is about equality. Like, it was a really interesting scene when the leader guy was like, no, like this whole game is about them getting an equal shot in here because they don't get an equal shot out there. And it's like, oh, like that's what makes media interesting, is like when the villainous like part of the story is actually, you're kind of like, oh, that makes sense. And it's like, he actually wants to give back to the poor, but then that goes out the window with the glass game when he's like, turn off the lights. It's like, oh, okay. So you like, they don't get an equal shot. You like, this guy figured out your game and you're not giving him an equal shot. So like, I think that's what my main issue is at the end. But in the first episode, it just does that so well. And like, you can see like everyone gets an equal shot. It's like awesome. And like, when everyone like settles down and they're like, holy shit, this is like horrifying. And everyone realizes like, we have to finish this game. Like, right. Like if we want to get out of this alive, we have to finish the game. And then that's when like the old man, you know, is like so hyped up about it. It's awesome. Yeah.
One more thing about the red light, green light. I think also the children's game aspect of it is one of the things that makes that first game so visceral also, and the second game as well, because it's just, they're in a children's playground. In the second one, the cookie licking one, it wasn't the cookie licking one, but that's what our main guy. Yeah. So like the juxtaposition there is part of what's most frightening about it, because it's like, this is a children's game and it's life or death stakes. And as the games go along, it stops doing that, you know, like Tug of War is still a children's game, but it's not exclusively a children's game. And then from there, it's like the glass game. I guess you could say that's kind of like hopscotch, but it's not really. They could have made it look a little bit more childlike. Same thing with really the rest of the games until Squid Game. But it sort of stops being children's games. It starts to just be like games, you know? And I think that that's one of the other reasons why the violence isn't quite as visceral as the show goes along. Yeah.
Like, because I was like thinking like, well, what are they going to do next? Like, is it going to do Foursquare? Are we doing Foursquare or something? But like with a bomb? Like something like my idiot brain being like, yep, that makes sense. Foursquare with a bomb. Like, the beauty of it is like, it's so simple, but like, I couldn't think of like doing a red light, green light where like you get shot if you move. Like that is like and again, it doesn't ever get that perfect again. And I think that's what like why the show goes downhill a bit. But like that first game is like, oh, like this is, And then again, you start thinking like, what other games did I play growing up? Like wall ball, like maybe you play wall ball with a bomb.
It's just all bomb material.
Kickball with a bomb. Yeah, it's like me pitching my Squid Game season 2 ideas is just being like, it's like a kid's game, but it has a bomb in it.
Well, I think at the end of this, we should talk a little bit about season 2, just our expectations, because I do think that's one of the worries is like by the end of season 1, I was like, you're kind of running out of games that are like believable, you know, like you could do a Foursquare thing. It wouldn't be like them throwing a bomb, but you know, like they could do
that would be stupid.
They could do like a hot potato, but like I don't like you could keep playing games, but at a certain point, it's just like now we're getting into Saw territory, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's that thing that they have to like be careful about, and they have to dance with it, you know.
Right, but we'll talk about that at the end. I want to talk about the other thing that hooked me because you get red light, green light, and it's so visceral and so violent and so stylized and all of this. What really surprised and hooked me though is when they decide to cancel the game. Yeah, and I think everyone's on the same page here. I'm not surprising anyone, but like it does two things. One, it allows us to, because we enter the story with Ji Young and we get his backstory, and then we get into the Squid Game, and you kind of hear a little bit about the backstories of the other characters, but you don't see it. Mm-hmm. This gives them the opportunity to now go back out into the world and explore those backstories with all of those other characters. And then also it's just like, there's no way that this is a possibility, because as soon as they cancel the game, like that's the end of the show. But they do it's extremely well written and it's very smart in that a bunch of them don't come back, but the ones that really need that money do come back. And that's part of the beauty of that decision. Narratively, I think it just works so well. It's a breath of fresh air. That was like the moment where I was like, oh, this show is that's what kept me in the show. And it
recontextualizes all the characters really too. Like the crazy woman. What's her name again?
Minyo.
Incredibly funny performance. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because in episode 2, before you actually know who she is, she's like begging. She's like, I have a kid. Like, I need to like get out of here. Like, this is horrible. And then she like comes back, and then everyone like, you know, our main little crew is like meeting up. It's like, oh my God, even the woman who had a kid like came back. And again, I think it just comes down to like, they need the money. And it just really recontextualizes every character there, because you know, like the first episode, you kind of feel bad for everyone. Mm-hmm. But after that, I found myself being like, I don't feel bad for you anymore because you did choose to come back. And I know it's like because you need the money and because capitalism sucks. But the main thing that they're doing there is that they're making this different than Saw. You know, it's like in Saw, no one wants to be there.
There's no choice.
Like there's no choice. But in this one, like it was really clever to give the contestants a choice, because now they signed up for it, and now it's more interesting because it's not just like someone like crying and being like, I didn't want this. It's just like, oh, I came back and like I made a mistake, but you know, I just need the money. And it's so clever.
It also deepens our understanding of how bad the situation is, because like they sign up initially because they're told that they could win a bunch of money. They don't know the stakes yet. They don't know it's life or death. They don't know that they're going to get shot in red light, green light. Yeah. So then when they leave and then decide to come back, they know the stakes and they know what they're in for, and they're still deciding that it's better than living in a society, you know? But like and, that deepens the like moral question of the whole thing, the anti-capitalist narrative that's going on. Like it just deepens that, because it's like, oh no, we know what this is and it's still better than what we went back to.
Yeah. And I think it's this is one of the best sequences in the entire show too. It's when everyone, you know, goes on their way. You see them in their lives like you did in episode 1, and you see them bored, and you see them like, oh God, like I do need the money. Like I need to go back. And like the last like 10 minutes is just like a beautiful montage of everyone like perfectly lined up.
Yeah.
It's a great sequence. Like it is just so, it's like art, you know. I just saw The French Dispatch, and it's like that movie's art too. And that last sequence is art. It's just like, it's like perfectly like lined up. Like every single character is framed exactly the same way in different locations. Camera's exactly the same, like same amount back. And it's just really nice. It's just like, we're back in the game, and like it gets you excited for episode 3, and it's a nice palate cleanser because it's not just like Saw the whole time. Episode 2 is really good, and I think episode 2 is also really understated because after the first episode you want more of that, but you need episode 2 to get the show going, really.
Seeing all the characters out in the world, also I think that's where the show is like at its best filmmaking wise. The first episode before we get into Squid Game, and then in that portion when they're all out doing their own thing, and then at the very end, the last episode after Squid Game is concluded, all of the stuff that's out in the real world I think is just unbelievably well directed, well shot, well choreographed, well acted. All of that's really good, and it grounds the world as well, because like the Squid Game portion is so silly and ridiculous, and the colors are so absurd, bright green and pink and all of these colors, and like it's just so heightened. You do need, I think, once you get a taste of red light, green light, to come back out and be like, okay, let's reset. Just make sure we're all okay. Everyone okay? Yeah. Put your hands up if you are. Okay, let's go back in. Like it works for the characters. It's also for the audience a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Because it's, I never thought of it like that. Because I was itching to get back immediately. But yeah, it's great. And I don't know. And we'll talk about the stuff with the old man later.
Yeah.
I just think everything that happens in the last episode kind of undercuts his whole character throughout the season. And that moment is also like a really nice moment because he has dementia, and he's like getting up there. And it's just great. It's just great. I really thought he was going to pick yes. Like he was so hyped in red light, green light. And the thing is, it's funny because like, obviously he's like behind it all, and so like there's a whole spoiler review, so don't fucking watch it. But it is just such an interesting play for the Squid Game founders to be like, no, we're gonna let everyone go out, and then whoever really wants to come back, that's who's gonna like be in the game.
I think there's one nitpick to be had with that whole thing with allowing them to go back out into the real world. What if like 2 of them know each other, or 2 of them meet up at some point in a coffee shop, like, and they recognize each other? They're like, wait, were you in Squid Game and left after red light, green light? And they'd be like, yeah. And it's like, why don't we find others as well? And then all together go to the cops, so we don't sound like a bunch of individual crazy people. Like that's just one. It's just a silly nitpick, but And
I think the nitpick, like the correction for that nitpick would just be the cops are like, everyone's in on Squid Game and they like know. But I guess we'll have to see. I mean, speaking of cops,
big wasted potential.
I think in the first couple episodes I was really digging him, and then I just think it completely just disappears.
Yes.
And this is the hardest part about it, is he just doesn't have someone to talk to.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't have a friend.
It's like that thing in A New Hope, or the original Star Wars, where Han, Luke, and Chewbacca are in disguise in stormtrooper costumes. And it's like, could you imagine if Luke just went in by himself in a stormtrooper costume? Because that's what Squid Game does. Like, it just doesn't build to anything. It like doesn't. I thought he was gonna, because he's introduced in being interested in Ji-young, and like, talking to him and like figuring out like what's going on, because he believes him, and Ji-young's like, no, it's fake, whatever. And I thought there was going to be something with that, and especially when he was talking to him in the game, and then it just doesn't do anything, and it's just this random, predictable, weird like brother subplot. Yeah. Again, it just felt like filler in a weird way, and in a weird way that didn't feel like the organ harvester filler, because at least that filler at the end made you realize that the whole point of the game was about equality. Which they stopped doing after a while, but like in that moment, you're like, oh, that's why this was here, to just show like you can't cheat.
It's doing that, but it's also like it's ironically like the most human thing is like that they're just trying to skim a little off the top. They're just trying to make a little bit of money.
Buck, yeah.
Yeah, they're just, and so it's like, oh, okay, that these are people behind the mask. They're not all just robots. Like there's dudes behind the mask, and they're just trying to make some money off of these And that's a smart idea too, because like of all the bodies, you know.
And I guess you can't do that without having the cop character in there, but it's just so fucking hard to know who he is. And I think if they did something simple like give him a partner, it would make it easier. And then like maybe you kill the partner off and then you save whatever happens to him for season 2, you know. At least there's some intrigue there, you know, and like maybe Ji Young's gonna like save him or something. You know, there's just something there that like it just didn't coalesce altogether, and I think that's fine. But it was just one of the weaker things, and a real head scratcher throughout, because like the whole time you're like, okay, where's this going? And typically you say that in a show that's really good, and they're like, oh, it did go somewhere.
Exactly.
But you know, with this, it just didn't do anything for me, and I think it was just kind of a waste of time.
And it's so disappointing too, because I think it starts off very fresh and very tense, because I thought he was going to be doing everything from the mainland, so to speak. You know, he was going to be like investigating in South Korea, not on the island, you know? And so he gets on the island and it's like, oh shit, like he has no idea what he's getting into.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what his job is as soon as he puts on the costume. How is he going to figure this out? It's like, actually, it made me sweat, because I was like, if I was that guy, I'd be dead so fast, because I would make one wrong move and someone would kill me. And they do the smart thing with the button, where they make that one button, like it's hanging by a string. So you can tell like who he is, but sometimes it's still hard to tell. And after that, after like the first couple episodes of him sort of starting to figure out what his job is, that's when you start going like, okay, now what? And the show kind of just postpones it. He keeps doing kind of nothing, and then a little bit more kind of nothing, and then the brother reveal, and it's like, really? I mean, I think we all expected that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, because he's going to find his brother. There's only one guy it could really be, right? Like he could have been one of the workers, I guess, but like it had to have been the front man. So the whole time I'm just like, this is his brother, right?
Well, it's like, yeah, no, it's funny because it's like, all right, so like the only mystery that there's 2 mysteries. Who is his brother?
Yeah.
One is who is his brother, and the other is who is the lead guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's no other, like the answer to both is in the other mystery.
Right.
And again, maybe something gets lost in translation or some shit, but like it is just so painfully obvious. And like again, it's just a weak aspect of it, and I don't know what you could have done to make it stronger, but I think adding a partner and adding a little more mystery to it, everyone's like trying to save face for like the contestants, while like this guy's just like kind of wreaking havoc like inside the compound, and then that's, you know, you learn more about the compound and stuff like that through that, but again, easier said than done. And again, this is just such a subplot that it's like not important to the overall story. So, and
you know, a lot of people were disappointed because he dies at the end. It feels like nothing was accomplished. I don't have a problem with that so much. You know, I don't believe really in wasted time if like you like the characters or if you're interested in the characters. And I was fairly interested with him and his whole thing. And so the fact that he dies and doesn't get the word out is fine by me. But you got to give me something at least. Like it felt like it really didn't go anywhere. It's not that he didn't accomplish his goal, because that's fine. But it feels like it really did go nowhere. Because also I think that the biggest question was never who is the front man. Like I didn't care.
No.
Nobody cared. Fuck. That was the least interesting part of Squid Game, is who was running the operation. Because we know who's running the operation. Capitalists.
A bad guy.
Yeah, a bad
capitalism. The bad guys are
business people.
Business, yeah. Fucking Gordon Gekko from Wall Street.
Dudes with money. That's who's running it. We didn't need to know.
Could you imagine if it was Song Kang-ho?
Yeah. I was thinking throughout the show, I was like, okay.
I was like, is Song Kang-ho going to be in this?
I was like, well, yeah, when's he going to show up? When's my guy going to show up? Well, I mean,
if Bong Joon-ho directed it, Song Kang-ho would be like Jeong.
Big time.
Like, he's literally a Song Kang-ho character.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's down on his luck. Again, I think he gets a little too up his own ass at the end of the series.
He's like, why would you kill that person? It's like, what?
It's like, wait, hold up. You just killed an old man, like literally a couple days ago, who had dementia. You tricked him. He was your friend. And you murdered him. Not really, because he's the leader behind it, but it is funny where he's just like, what, like, like, it's just weird how all of us are just like, this isn't about killing people or money or anything. It's like, that's all it's about. Anyway, so something kind of on topic is, it is fun because, like, at the beginning, it seems like they can split the money.
Yeah.
It really feels like, because everyone's making alliances and stuff, and you kind of forget, you're like, because they never explain that the last man standing is the winner. Mm-hmm. So, like, as you keep going along, you're like, wait, can they all win?
Right.
Or is it just last man standing?
Because you know that the last game is going to be Squid Game, which I don't think is a bad thing, knowing, because that's how the show starts off, is with that sort of like flashbacky black and white explanation of how to play the game Squid Game. So you know that game is going to come up, and it hasn't come up yet, so it must be the last game. I think that's just good writing. That's nice. I like that. But you know that that's going to be the last game, so you kind of know that it has to be last man standing, but that was never explicitly stated, and it seemed like multiple people could win. Does it only filter down to 1v1? Is that the only way Squid Game ever goes? What if there were 4 people left for the final game?
Yeah.
Would they just kill them in the middle of the night?
Yeah, right? Yeah, and also, like, how Sebiok, I think how they got rid of her character was probably, like, the most disappointing.
Sad.
Because I think she was always a fun... Yeah, let's talk about her for a bit.
Yeah,
I think she was just such, like, a breath of fresh air in the series.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, she's kind of like that loner character that you always get in these Battle Royale movies. And she's just, like, really good at acting, and it just feels so shitty that the reason she dies is because they just decide to blow up the glass bridge.
Yeah, very unfair, which is, apparently this whole thing is about fairness and equality, but like,
and
no,
that whole bridge sequence was unfair to begin with, and then she just gets stabbed by a giant piece of glass.
Yeah.
And again, I just think it's kind of shitty how they just kind of like toss that character aside, because it's like, in screenwriting we learned that everything is important and everything means something, and I don't think her character really went anywhere fully, which is a big bummer, because she's one of the standouts of the series, as well as like really the heart of that 6th episode is her whole storyline, because like it's all about her friend being like the actual loner and actually too far gone, because she like killed people and she doesn't even have a family, but like Sebiok has her like brother and like something she's taking care of, and important things. And again, I think in the second to last episode, it's like, we can split this money. Like, that's what like Jeong is like convincing her of. And it's just really weird that they just choose to kill her for no reason. Especially because I just kind of wanted more, and like maybe that's, I don't know, like we've read all of The Walking Dead, and a big thing in The Walking Dead is always just like people die randomly, and like that's cool, but like in a show like this, that's not realistic at all. Besides the idea of capitalism in it, like why just randomly kill someone? Is it for the sake of just like getting Jeong to like face off against Song-woo, and that's it?
Yeah, because when this happens, she says, make sure that you take care of my brother if I do die. And then she does die. So you kind of start to think, oh, he will form a relationship with her brother, that the kind of relationship that he never got to have with his own daughter.
Exactly.
And that's where the show's going to end, is like, he's going to take care of this kid and blah, blah, blah. But that's where like the last episode really sort of starts to bungle things. I do think it's an amazing last episode, despite the fact that it completely bungles everything. Like, I think both things are simultaneously true, but that's ultimately not what happens. He does stay true to his promise. He does help out the kid, but after a year, it was an extremely disappointing thing, because like I thought she was the most compelling character on the show. She's the whole like North Korean defector part of it, when she goes to visit her brother in when they leave the Squid Game at first. all of that, the way that she interacts with everyone because she's a loner, the whole character is just fantastic.
The whole bathroom sequence too is like really good, where she's like crawling through the vents and stuff.
Right.
Learning more.
Yeah, she's the smartest character on the show. And
yes,
part of the intelligence there is by being a loner, but still loosely aligning herself with our main heroes. She's just on the fray enough that she has mobility, but she's connected to them enough that she can always depend on them. So just an extremely intelligent character. Also, as soon as she showed up, I was like, I'm in love with this woman. My goodness. So like, I was just hoping that she was going to make it, which brings me to this. How did you think that this show was going to end? Because I'll give you what I was thinking for a lot of it. I thought that she was going to win and that Ji Young was going to die in some sort of sacrifice. It was going to come down to like 4 or 5 characters. It would work the opposite way, basically, where like she would take care of Ji Young's daughter. So that's kind of where I thought it was going. So when she does die in the actual show, I was extremely disappointed because then it just builds to archetypal good guy, bad guy final fight.
Yeah. And I thought similarly. I mean, I just felt like they spent so much time on her. She's honestly, she's kind of the second lead of it, besides Sang-woo. And obviously she gets third place in it. But yeah, I thought she would win, just because I thought that'd be kind of a fun twist. I mean, I never thought Ali would win. So
no, shout out to Ali though.
Yeah, shout out to Ali though. He is very stupid in his last episode, but besides that, he's a great character. But yeah, I don't know. I always thought, like, obviously they were setting up that Sang-woo would like just like real fast. He plays the game the best.
Yes,
like hands down. Like if this is a game of Survivor, you're gonna be rooting for him. Like you're gonna be like, okay, like yeah, sometimes he backstabs people, but like at the end of the day, he wants that money. He understands that like only one person can win, and I don't think anyone else really understood that in the game. But yeah, I always knew, like, obviously Sang-woo would die, and like, I mean, there's some world where Sang-woo could have won, and that would have been like a dark, like true to form capitalism. Like the hungriest is gonna get it. Whoever wants it the most, whoever's gonna pull themselves up by their bootstraps gonna win. So I kind of thought it was going there, but then I again, once Seo-byuk dies, it's just kind of like, okay, this is like, it's gonna be like this, right? And it was, and I don't know. I just wish there was kind of like one more last like nice little twist in it, because again, in episode 6, when they pick partners, I'm thinking like somehow they're gonna have to kill their partner, because it was like too good to be true. Everyone was like partnering up and stuff, and when that happens, that like I did predict that, but it's not. I'm not mad about it, because that's like an extremely hard thing to write yourself into. And again, like that marks the show, that marks a good television show is like doing something like that, where like, no matter what, we can't get out of this with half of our main cast dying, that you have grown to love over the last six episodes, which is wonderful.
And writing yourself into a corner is more impressive in television, I think, than it is in movies. Because you can write yourself into a corner in a movie, you only have 20 minutes left. You could kill the main character halfway through the movie. You could do whatever you want because you have 2.5 or less hours with this story and with these characters. But in television, episode 6, we still have a bunch of time to go.
And your mind is like, how do we do this? How are we getting out of this, guys?
And it is, like you said, we both knew that was coming, but it delivers on every beat after that. It makes it so worthwhile, even if you did predict it.
And even in the sense is like, when Sang-woo's tricking Ali, a little part of you is like, maybe he's right. Like maybe they're gonna do it.
We're talking about the marble game. Let's talk about the big twist. Let's talk about Il-nam. Let's talk about his character and everything. Because
Il-nam, yeah.
For me, that's like, I'm going through the show. I'm in love with this guy. Obviously, Hwang Dong-hyuk, who is the director and like creator of the series, he knows that everyone's going to love this guy. So he has that in his back pocket while he's writing it. He's like, this is so clearly going to be everyone's favorite character. He's going to be a meme instantly because he's old. He has dementia. He's so sweet. He's so kind. And I love that. I love that character through 6 episodes. And so when they make the big twist, when it's revealed that he was behind it all, he was the leader, I was like, okay with it, but it just lessened my overall experience of the whole show because I wanted that character to be as kind as he was. I wanted that guy to exist in this world, and they take that away from you with the twist. So all of that charm and all of the love and all of the warmth and positivity and all of that is gone by making that twist the way that they made that twist. And it's fine. I'm okay with it. It doesn't ruin the show for me, but it does take away one of the things that I loved most about it. I loved that positivity.
And like we were talking about, it really undercuts every scene he's in beforehand. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, he... Also, like, it's all about equality. Doesn't he know the games? Like, does he know the games that are coming? Like, this
will be a big Squid Game season 2 question because they'll probably have to do different games. Yeah.
Anyways, I just think it undercuts like their whole relationship, even though like the last scene with them is like telling you it doesn't. Like, he's like, no, it's all real. Like, we're still buddies. You're still my Namju. Is that it? What does he call him? I don't remember.
I forget. Yeah.
I'm a horrible podcaster. That's all.
It's okay. Hey, we're here together.
Yeah. But it's good. But you know what I thought would have been a fun twist?
Oh, please.
But I think it'd be really fucking cool if it was like kind of like a Truman Show type deal. And everyone was in on it.
The Truman Show is amazing. So like,
yeah,
I'm here for it.
If you're gonna do one person, like I just hate when there's like one person who's the mastermind behind it, and it kind of undercuts that equality thing because like Ilhan knew what he was signing up for, but I guess similarly also Ilhan, no matter what, was gonna die in the marble game.
He only plays until he knows he'll be beat, and then he quits, which is kind of bum. It's kind of lame. But to go on your Truman Show thing, like, they would have had to have changed a lot of stuff going along. Like, we couldn't have had the cop subplot unless that ended up paying off. Like, he finds out that it's all a Truman Show thing.
Yeah.
Before, but we don't know. I don't know. You could play with that.
Or the thing is like, that's when you like loop him back in with the main story, and then he tries to save Ji-hung. So like the last act is him saving Ji-hung.
Another, not to just talk about the Truman Show, but another movie that's similar is The Game, David Fincher film. I know you haven't seen that one, right?
Right, I have not, no.
So I won't spoil it, but the question that goes throughout the movie is whether it is a game or not. And you go back and forth throughout the whole movie. Eventually you find out if it is or isn't. And I won't say it here, but I think that there is something to be said about that. Maybe if Squid Game did do that, we'd be like, we've seen this before. Lame.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be interesting. But instead, they have to do this big reveal. Yeah. Again, it's the least interesting thing about the show is like who's behind it.
100%. Yeah.
They do that bet. It's like, is somebody going to save him? Who knows? I was expecting Ji-hung to go down there and save him himself because like that was not a part of the... Because like cheating is a big part of Squid Game, even though they talk about equality, So
they talk about equality, but it's like, no. And then if you actually know something, like how glass works, then we're just gonna shut off the lights. Go fuck yourself, bro.
Exactly.
And the thing is, I honestly think they could have easily fixed that, like real fast on that. I was telling this to my buddy the other day. I was like, what if like instead of turning off the lights, they were just slowly like running out of time, and the last one he's just like very precise about, and also like there could be a little thing where like maybe that guy is also kind of like stalling for time because he knows like it's all gonna explode anyways, so like he's just stalling the last one for time, and that's when Sung-woo can like just like push him through the thing. You can still get the same exact ending and make it a little more interesting than them just being like, let's shut off the lights. Anyways, that's just a little tangent.
Yeah, I think let's also talk about the very ending. How about the airplane thing?
Yes, let's talk.
He makes a decision to go back to Squid Game and not to go see his daughter. And to have red hair, which is tough to pull off. Real tough.
And we're not saying he does.
Exactly. He's a very handsome man as well, but that red hair is tough to pull off.
I don't know, man. Yeah. That bright of red hair. Yeah, my ending, what I wanted was he looks back and the whole thing is go see your daughter or go get Squid Game.
Right. Left or right? It's a scroll left or right. Like, which one's it going to be?
He should go to his daughter. Like, that is his whole, like, the thing is, that is his whole arc in this whole fucking show. I've bitched to my friends about this too. It's like the whole thing at the beginning is that he's a shitty dad. His ex-wife's new husband is like, I'm going to give you as much money as you want. Just don't be here. Now he has as much money as he wants, and then he doesn't be there for his daughter. He's like not there for his daughter. Like the whole point of this whole arc is not about him just like being a superhero and like ready to get back into the Squid Game. It's like, it's about being a father and like him realizing like through Sibyuk, through Sangwoo, like all these people, like that family is actually really important. And like you can still have a season 2 and have him go back to Squid Game, but you can wrap up the first season like that. Cause like, I hate when people are like, they do this shit all the time in movies where just like something ends and it's like, okay, that's it. That's over. But it doesn't have to be because you can just make a sequel to it. Like, I'm trying to think of like, I mean, the end of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. Like the Death Star blows up, Darth Vader is gone, but it's not like Luke and Leia and everyone at the end are like, well, Darth Vader's still out there. Like, fuck this ceremony. Like, we're gonna go out and find him.
They hand their medals back and they go fly off.
They hand their medals back. Yeah, it's like no, they stick there and they get their medals and then they leave. And it's just like that like Squid like. And again, it's because I know like. I want to say it's a studio note, but I don't know. I haven't read what the director and writer said about the ending. But I really imagine they're like, well, if we want a season 2, you can't do that. And it's like, no, you can, because no matter what, your first season should be its own condensed story. And I think that would have easily made its way to a condensed story. It's like he's going to see his daughter.
Yeah, I think the ending is quite interesting. Because it's definitely just the wrong move for this story.
Yeah.
I can easily see myself as a writer making the same mistake though, because it is such a moral obligation that he has to go back and
that is true.
Squid Game, right? Like he has a moral obligation because he is the winner to go back and make sure no one else has to go through this. And he just saw the card guy from Train to Busan. So like he knows the game is still going on. So like there is a deep moral piece of this where like he knows what's going on. He's the only one who knows because everyone else died, including the cop. He's got to go back. But that's not what this story was about. They could have set that up and then had that be the ending. Because like, you know, in Breaking Bad, spoiler alert, near the end of the series, he says, it wasn't really all for you guys. I was good at this and I wanted this. You could have that same sort of ending here where he's like, I've been saying that I want to be there for my daughter, but maybe I am a selfish person and maybe I want to be like the hero of this story and I want to go end Squid Game. But they didn't set up for that. Instead, it does feel like season 2 coming next December, you know? Like it feels like if they put Squid Game or Ji Young will return in Squid Game season 2, like, but
it's how it's shot too.
Right. And it's funny that he becomes basically an anime character, like with the red hair, and he becomes a superhero, and like he's about to go end Squid Game. He's about to go mess their whole thing up, and it is disappointing. It's disappointing because like that could have worked in a different version of the show, but this version of the show, like you said, you're building towards him wanting to be there for his daughter. So when he turns around, it's betraying that. Now, if you still want to set up for season 2 and you still want to have everything be the same, just hard cut before he turns around.
Yeah.
What does he do? Does he go back? Does he not? And then leave it up to the audience because that's more interesting. Because then we'll decide, oh, I think he definitely went back. No. I think he went to go see his daughter. Like, let us decide.
Which, again, they wouldn't have set up for that in any way. Because, like, I think a movie that does that well is Inception. It lets you decide the ending. Even though people are like, oh, I know the actual ending. It's like, no,
he's got the wedding band on and all of the dreams. So therefore,
it's like, no, I think it's what you decide it is. So, and I think that's the very nature of that movie. It's like they set up for that. In this one, it would have been kind of weird. It's like, okay, that just left it on a cliffhanger for no reason and they didn't set it up. But again, It would have been more interesting than hero shot of him walking with red hair. Like he just dropped like $400 on a ticket that he's not going to use. I think I could have forgiven a lot of other things if he went back for his daughter. But I think that is like just the last little straw where I'm like, okay, the ending just doesn't stick the landing. And that's fine, because I think a lot of the end, like I think one of the best endings of the season is the tug of war episode when they run forward and you're like,
yeah.
And it ends. And like, I haven't been that hyped at the end of a season or an episode of television in a long time.
That's a great point too, because I was watching that episode and I was like, I don't have enough time to watch the next one, but I have to watch the beginning of this episode. And then I ended up watching the rest of the episode. Like, that's just good. That's engaging is what that is.
No, it was like, I think we finished it at like 2 a.m. and we're like, I was like, fuck, what? No, holy shit, yes. And then I was like, we gotta, and then we just watched the next episode. Cause like, I'm curious what Netflix would like show. Like they definitely have this, just like how long it takes like a person to like watch the next episode. And that had to have been the number one, like back-to-back watch, because it's like, how can you not watch the second episode? And the thing is, the tug of war one like isn't as like interesting, or like it's not as interesting or complex as like say like the red light green light one, but the tug of war is just as exciting, and like it does get you on the edge of your seat. And it is, again, it's something that television hasn't done in a long time. Like, could you imagine if you had to wait a week after that episode?
If this was teased out over the course of a week, I would just be like nervously awaiting it. Like it just would have.
And you wouldn't want to be spoiled. Like I miss this thing that we used to do where we used to watch The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
We don't anymore, really.
Yeah.
But we used to be so excited just about like every week. It was like, what's going to happen next? Like Merle is going to face Daryl in a fight to the death. Like that's crazy. And there hasn't really been too many cliffhangers like that. And that's something I can say is so good about Squid Game, is like, it has a lot of really good cliffhangers where you're like, I literally have to watch the next episode.
With that ending, let's talk a little bit about what we're expecting from season 2, and then we'll wrap up, unless you have any other final thoughts about the season. But, because I mean, all the stuff that we haven't mentioned, like the production design, the set design, like the direction, all of the cinematography, blah, 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 all of the performances. It's all great. It's a great show. And none of the stuff that happens towards the end of the show actively ruins the good stuff for me. Even though I'm disappointed.
Half,
even though I'm disappointed by stuff that happens in the second half of this series, it's overall still a very positive endorsement for me. I think everyone should watch the show because I do think it's very interesting. It's very fun. So I think it's a worthwhile watch, even though it does get a little bit disappointing at the end. But with that being said, season 2, what do you want? Because neither of us wanted season 2. I'm just going to assume.
I was about to say nothing. I want nothing from
but
season 2 because I don't want a season 2. But yes, we are getting it because it's the biggest show of all time on Netflix. And obviously you have to have a season 2. But my thing about it is that, okay, so we have to have a season 2. You're in the writer's room and they're forcing you to write a season 2. What I think I would want to see in a season 2 is more behind the scenes stuff of Squid Game. I think it'd be really interesting to kind of pull back the mask, so to speak, and basically have Ji-hung, obviously he's going back, but like, I gather that the idea that Ilhan really wanted him to get, and like kind of like what they were hinting at, is that he's going to take it over eventually one day. And like he saw something in him and he knows, and he does this with every winner. Cause I think the cop's brother won in like 5 years ago or whatever. So I think it'd be a really interesting pivot for the show to kind of see all the behind the scenes stuff of it. So you basically kind of do a Noises Off. You kind of do what Noises Off does. You know that play?
Yeah.
So it's, for those of you who don't know Noises Off, for the 5 other people watching this, Noises Off is a play. In the first act, they're rehearsing the play. And like they're getting ready for the opening. You see everything, how it is from the perspective of the players, you know? And in this case scenario, Ji-hung. So first season, you see him going through Squid Game. And then the second act or the second season of Squid Game, you flip it on its head. So Noises Off is completely silent in the second act. And it's just it's just backstage of an actual performance. So like you're seeing all the stuff you saw in the first act, but it's silent and you actually just see the reverse of it. So you see people entering. So you see only people when people exit. So in the first, it's such a good idea for a show. In the first act, you see people enter and you only see them on stage. In the second act, you only see people exiting and what they do backstage. And it's hilarious. So a similar thing you could do with Squid Game season 2, where Ji-hung is now part of the Squid Game team. And it's, again, you can still make it kind of a black comedy with like, you know, the people behind the scenes. And again, maybe you're doing the same exact games because it's a new season of Squid Game. And again, you just see it through a different light. And you see like, again, this year's Ji-hung coming out and like, what does that say for like everyone else and stuff like that. And I think it'd be a really interesting way to just flip the show on its head. Cause what I don't want to see is what we just saw. And
right.
And especially because like the every episode I watched after episode 6 just had diminishing returns to it. So it's like if it just keeps going that direction, it's the reason I don't want season 2. It's the like I don't want to see it because I can see where it's going and it's not going up.
One of the things that's disappointing is that in season 1 they give you a little bit of everything. They give you on stage or on stage and then backstage. If they did not have the cop subplot in season 1, that's the perfect season 2. That's
totally
what you want. So yeah, but instead of having it be the cop, it could be the cop and Ji-hung. He goes back to his hometown. He finds that guy and he's like, I have something important to show you. And then he's like, this is what Squid Game is. We have to go back into this game. And then
they walk into Squid Game season 2.
Then they walk into Squid Game season 2, and then it's all just behind the scenes stuff. And then they have to blow up the operation from within. Because I think if you put him back in the Squid Game, it's just gonna be boring. It's gonna be like, I've been here before. Trust me. Because then he has to be the leader. And then it's just gonna be improbable if he wins twice. Because so much of it is luck and people cheating and stuff. So like there's no way he could win it again. Maybe they want to subvert our expectations and he dies halfway through. If that's the case, that's boring as well and uninteresting. There's only so many ways that they can go where I'd be like, oh yes, this makes sense. You can't put him back through the game.
No.
But it can't happen.
But they are gonna.
Well, we have to see the games. That's the truth. Whether Ji-hung goes through it himself or not, we're going to be introduced to new characters that are going through the games, and they're going to be the secondary characters, and so we're not going to care quite as much. So we're going to have lesser games that are kind of sillier by nature with lesser characters. It just, I don't know. I don't know.
Can we make a bet? Can I make a bet with you?
Of course.
He's gonna be in the games again.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He's gonna come back. He's gonna sneak his way in somehow. However he does do that. And then he's only gonna be in like 1 or 2 games. He's not gonna be in all of them, but he's definitely gonna be in 1 or 2 games. And it's gonna suck because like the first season was so great because he sucked at every game.
Yeah, he was bad, except for the cookie game. He was smart enough to think of the licking, but other than that, he was bad. Yes,
he was smart in the cookie game. I love the one part in the glass scene where like he's like overthinking everything and like looking at his shoes and stuff, and he looks up and he can't remember, like 15 other people went before him and picked the right glass, and he can't remember which glass is good or bad. He's like, oh shit. And then Sambyuk's like, fucking get your head in the game. It's the left one.
You're right.
And it's just, it's just such and it encapsulates that character so perfectly. And it would just feel bad, I think, if he understood everything. So, and I think that's why your ending works well. And I think that's why the initial ending works well, because he's incompetent. He like wouldn't spend the money. He's like incompetent and he has PTSD and there was a credit card in his mouth. Like he's just not going to do what everyone thinks is right. And like, that's what makes it fun. And I guess in some ways that's what makes the ending okay too, because he's like, I'm going to be a superhero and I do have red hair now.
Honestly, I just don't think that there is a world where season 2 is as good as season 1 or better than season 1. And I think that's me being sort of Debbie Downer, sort of pessimistic. I think that the show is very creative and very clever. So I'm not going to doubt the creator of the show. What I've heard is that he will be taking his time with it.
Good.
And that they will only pursue it if the idea is good enough. Now, people have said that before, and then they've come up with sequels that are bad. So who's to say what's going to happen? But I'm hopeful that he will do what's right with season 2, something interesting.
You know what? The funny part about Squid Game is like, I don't think you can go back, because the thing that made the first season so good, and I think this is a nice thing to close it on, were all those really wonderfully written characters. And like characters that we haven't talked about this yet, but this series took like 10, 15 years to make. And that's real. Like you can tell with how clean a lot of the ideas are and how interesting all the characters are, even though they might die in just like 4 episodes. But like, you're never going to get Sang-woo back. You're not going to get Se-byuk back. You're not going to get the crazy woman back. You're not going to get big bully man who has to have 2 hard-boiled eggs back. And like, you're not going to get literally almost every character besides Jiyoung that made the first season really good. And that's including Ilhan. And I mean, the only person you have is basically the front man, maybe the cop, and Jiyoung. You're not going to get all the lovable characters because you just can't bring them back.
I don't think that there's that much left to be seen. I'm not sure if there is a stone that was left unturned by what they did in season 1.
But can I say something about that? And it's similar after The Last Jedi, where people were like, where do you go from here? An incredibly creative, artistic genius can create something really special that like you don't even think about. If Last Jedi has taught us anything, is that it is just very difficult to create something brand new. And I think that's what happened with Rise of Skywalker. They just tried to go back. They tried to double back instead of like leaning into it fully. And I hope Squid Game doesn't double back into creating like new Alis and like new Se-byuks and like just new like same archetypes of the same characters from season 1. Like make something brand new, and I'll be interested to see season 2. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, I think it was a very successful series. It gave me a lot. I had a good time watching it. Normally I don't binge shows, but this was one show where I was like, I got to keep watching because like it's so engaging and so much fun, and I like these characters. It's colorful, and I genuinely had a really good time with it, and I've had a very good time talking with you about it. And I'm
my God, yes.
I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff that we didn't talk about, but I think we hit most of the important stuff. If anyone listening wants to hear us talk about anything else, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you thought of the show, what you think you want out of season 2, all that good stuff. Check out the Noah Baumbach series.
Yeah.
Check out the Bong Joon-ho series. Check out the Nothing Notable podcast. Any last words, Tyler?
I really enjoyed Squid Game as well, and again, I hope there's more media like this in the future. Just something that everyone just loves and watches. And I like Marvel movies, but I feel like it alienates a certain group of people. So like, I think it's nice that this can still be made. Something that's like wholly original is the biggest thing ever. Like that is very very rare nowadays. So I'm excited that it happened, and I'm really it's really cool that it's a foreign project too, and it's not just from America. And I think that's it, baby. That's another notable podcast. We'll see ya.